into your kidney, way deep, the salt concentration increases dramatically to 1,200 milliosmoles. So and here, Andy, here's the morbid hour. If you were to slice a kidney open and you put your tongue right in the center of the kidney, it would be like really, really salty, really salty.
Professor, what's a milliosmol?
What's a milliosmol? Oh, yeah.
Oh, is it like, okay. Is it the unit mole?
Well, it's derived from them. I don't want to freak everybody out, but a mole is what we in biology and chemistry used for concentration. And we add a little, the osmol part of that is because we look at the particles. This would have been something if you had a good AMP1 instructor would have covered. But so osmol is basically a unit of measure to how many particles you have in your system. So that includes sodium, potassium, calcium, you name it, all those things make up your osmolarity, osmoles. Milli is because it's pretty weak. Milli just means a thousandth, remember? So milliosmol is just a unit to measure the concentration of all the solutes you have in your body. All right. And like I said, I don't want to scare everybody away with the chemistry. So milli means a thousandths. Osmol refers to a molar unit. And the here I am. I'm going to go too far. So we're going to forget that. All right. So osmol is just a unit of your solute concentration. And if you feel deprived, Andy, or anybody else, I'll be more than happy to go and have another lesson on exactly how we come up with that number of osmol. So, okay, good. Thank you. All right. So, deep down in your kidney, it is highly concentrated with mostly sodium. All right. So, we have this gradient from 300 to 1,200. All right, okay. And then here we go. Now, that illustration looks pretty scary. All right. You're not going to have to describe that in any way. But what we mean by countercurrent, and this is a typical thing in physiology, countercurrent means exactly that. You have flow going in opposite directions. All right. So follow me here. So I pushed the plasma out. It's now filtrate. It's going down my PCT. Now it's going down the descending loop of Henle. And this descending loop of Henle, and this is the only thing that you need to know testable wise, is it's very permeable to water. And the water is going to leave via osmosis because as it descends, the concentration of salts on the outside is very high. And remember what our definition of osmosis is, going from low solute concentration to high solute concentration. So the water leaves. But the water doesn't get to stick around very long because the vasa recta, those straight capillaries, pick up the water and take it out. So I preserve this 1,200 milliosmol concentration. So that's what the arrows mean. The descending loop is going down, it's unloading the water through osmosis, and then the capillary, the vasa recta, is picking up and transporting the water away. Everybody with me so far? Did I lose anybody? On the other side, the ascending loop of Henle, here's where things get tricky. Depending on my hydration status, I can either reabsorb sodium or not. And so again, if I will need to keep the sodium, I will use my sodium potassium pump the sodium out, and that will be picked up by the capillary. All right. So over here where my arrow is, this is where tricky things happen. Tricky things happen. All right. You don't have to describe this illustration. Here is what will be on your test. Boom. All right. And I like to use different words, but the purpose of the whole countercurrent mechanism is to produce a hyperosmotic, that means high concentration of interstitial fluid in the medulla, i.e. the 1200. I want to keep that. The other purpose is to produce a hyperosmotic concentrated filtrate in the presence of ADH. And that'll make more sense in just a little bit, all right? Or to produce a hypoosmotic, a dilute concentration of filtrate in the absence of ADH. What does that all mean? All right, so here we go. So if you are well hydrated, you've been drinking all your water, how many glasses of water should you drink a day? Trick question. All right. All right. Daniel has the best answer. They say. It's they. All right. All right. So we will talk about that on our next lecture on actually how many glasses of water. But yeah, everybody knows 8. That's fixed in your brains. But that's a misconception big time. But we will talk about that next class. All right. But if you're well hydrated, you don't need 8. You need about 5, and I'll explain that later on. All right. So if you're well hydrated, you go through this entire countercurrent mechanism, and your urine is very dilute. It's only 100 milliosmoles. And how do you know if you're well hydrated when you pee? Somebody answer that question. Let's pick somebody. Well, it should always be clear if it's all right. So that's not what I want to hear. I don't want to hear the word clear, because even yellow urine is clear. What I want to hear is very good, Joshua. Less yellow. Very good, Andy. So yeah, it should be very light yellow. So if your urine is very light yellow, almost like water with just a hint, yeah, looks like toilet water. Okay, fine. That means, hey, you're well hydrated. And so you're going to get rid of a lot of water because you don't need it. Because, yeah, you can drink too much water. Like everything I've ever said. When is water bad for you? Excess. And you can. So I always got a kick when I was in the gym, working out in the gym, and I would see some of these guys with the gallon jug of water. And I'm like, idiot. You don't need a gallon of water. Anyway, so this is how it works. You're well hydrated, the urine is very dilute. You're getting rid of the excess water that you don't need. All right, beautiful. However, if you're dehydrated, hey, look, our friend, the posterior pituitary and the hypothalamus say, hey, we're dehydrated here. We need to conserve water. So you're going to release ADH. And ADH is a hormone. Comment? Yeah, Andrea, there was a this was a big thing. I think it was like maybe 10 years ago. It made the news. But yeah, and let's talk about that just from your application aspect. There was a contest years ago, many years ago. It was called We for We. I think it was called We for We. And it was a contest where the contestants had to drink water every every minutes. And the last person to actually have to go to the bathroom, won a Wii, the video game thingy. Everybody know what I'm talking about? We like in YII versus YEE. All right, and then one of the contestants died. And again, I'd like to think you guys could get this now. If you overdrink water, you diluted your sodium and your potassium levels. So, no, they died. And yeah, I don't know if they finished the contest after somebody dropped over dead. But I like to think you guys understood what went horribly wrong with this. If you drink too much water, you've diluted your sodium and potassium. So you've changed those concentration gradients for action potentials. And we've already talked about that way back when. All right. So if you have too little sodium, too little potassium, everything's going to go wrong with producing action potentials. So yeah, you can drink too much water. Bad things happen. All right. So if you are indeed dehydrated, we are going to produce our antidiuretic hormone. Yeah, Andrea, that just discussed the living daylights out of me, the hot dog eating contest. Oh my God, that guy's going to die of a heart attack very soon. That's just gross. 68 hot dogs. I know. And God knows what their arteries look like. Ugh. Exactly. All right, so let's go on. So your ADH works by making your let's go back here. So your ADH works by producing what are simply little channels. They have a simple name, aquaporins. Aqua for water, porins for pore. And so what happens is ADH causes the collecting duct especially and to produce these little pores so water can escape through the little channels. And of course, they're picked up by the vasa recta, part of that counter-current exchange. So if you are dehydrated, the ADH is going to make these little pores, and water is going to leave out of the collecting duct and be transported through the vasa recta. And so if you're super, super dehydrated, your urine is going to be at 1,200 milliosmoles. And again, I want you guys to get the application of this. So what does that mean? What is your urine going to look like if you're super dehydrated? All right. It's going to be dark. Orange. A dark orange. Brown. Okay, Christine. Cindy. Ooh, that's a good one, Cindy. Drunk yellow. Yeah. And that's just a side note. Alcohol actually inhibits the ADH. So, yeah, if you didn't know this already, 80 to 90% of your hangover after a hard night of partying is dehydration. Your brain is pissed off because you dehydrated all your neurons in your brain. So that headache and all that other stuff is almost all dehydration because alcohol stops this ADH production, and so you just lose all that water. So that's cute. I've never heard that before, Cindy, the drunk yellow. But yeah, we're talking about when your urine is a dark yellow or an orange, you are super dehydrated. You are super dehydrated. All right. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. So again, if you're well hydrated, then you don't produce the ADH and you produce dilute urine. Any questions with that? Again, don't study this. This is too much in terms of this illustration. What you need to remember for the test is what I said earlier. This, boom. So again, if you have ADH, you're going to keep as much water as possible. In the absence, you're going to get rid of as much water as possible. It's that simple. All right. And this is just a GWIZ slide. There's nothing here to study. But yeah, so your hypothalamus gets your posterior pituitary to release ADH, and ADH, and look, it's a second messenger system, our cyclic AMP. And I just make these little itty bitty little vesicles that have a pore, and they merge with the membrane. And now I have a little pore so water can get back into the system. All right. Again, this is not something you should study. That's just for your edification. All right. Okay. And this is just a summary slide of everything I just said. A couple things that we will talk about next class, and that is, and again, this is primarily for your edification on your future careers, but renal clearance is a very important measure to see how well your kidneys are working. So don't worry about all the stuff right now. We will discuss this next class, okay? But what renal clearance means is, excuse me, at what rate, maybe I do have COVID and I just don't know it yet. Anyway, so renal clearance, don't freak out about this little equation, is how fast do I remove a particular substance out of my bloodstream via the kidneys. All right. So again, this is all about how well your kidneys are working. All right. So again, here comes our GFR. So we filter the blood. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Daniel. Alcohol seems to take forever. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but you can explain in your next little blurb there. So again, the natural way to look to see how well your kidneys are working is to see how well you remove creatinine. Now, you may not remember this, but creatinine is what you produce when you use creatine phosphate as part of your energy to produce ATP. I'm not going to go over that. If your AMP1 instructor didn't cover it, don't worry about it. But creatine phosphate is something you have in your muscles. And then if you need a little extra ATP, creatine phosphate can produce that. And this is what's left over. And now you need to get rid of it. Okay, so Andrew says it takes our bodies forever. Well, we have come on, everybody knows. What's the rate for 1 ounce of alcohol? How long does it take your liver to convert that to something that's not alcohol? You guys should all know this. 1 hour. Very good. All right. So yeah. Andy, you're hilarious. Do I want to know who your instructor was?
No, sir, you don't.
Was it an ACC?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I think I've already told you, after 10 years, I'm no longer the department chair. So you could tell me. I could probably guess, but anyway.
Look, snitches get stitches, so I keep my mouth shut as far as the name. But he was that's a true story. He was inebriated the entire time.
Okay, and again, I'm not the department chair, so I have no power or no nothing. So Annie, just give me the initials if you remember the instructors. I'm just curious because, like I said, I'm out of it. No, you're not going to tell me, huh?
No.
I know. I just need to know the initials, and then I can
I
guess.
saw Samantha's question. He was slumped over most of the time. So some of these terms I don't. Sorry.
I'm so curious. Like I said, I am no longer the department chair. I have no power. I'm done. If you just gave me the initials, I could just chuckle and go, "Yep." Look, everybody wants to know. You opened up a can of worms, Andy.
I sure did. Forget I said it.
We'll have to go offline. I'm just curious. What if you gave her in this? Well, like I said, I was the department chair for 10 years. I know the good ones and I know the bad ones. And yes, we have some bad ones, but I'll leave it at that. All right. But I do want to know, you can text me. Yeah, Andy can text me the initials. And like I said, I know every instructor by heart. And all I need is their first and last initial. All right, let's move on. We're a little off track. Okay, so again, the creatinine is something you produce when you really need a little extra oomph with ATP, and this is the byproduct, and then you get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. And this is a gee whiz slide here, folks. A creatinine is obviously dependent on how much exercise you were doing and how much you needed. So that's not very good to test for your kidney function. So typically, if they suspect you have kidney problems, they're going to inject you with a chemical. One of the common ones is called inulin. So they're going to pump that into your system, and they're going to see how long it takes for you to get rid of it. Because again, it's not natural, and you do not reabsorb it in any way. So they can see how fast you get rid of it. Again, that's just a gee whiz slide, folks. But you're going to hear that name inulin in your futures. All right, we're going to wrap this up with some simple stuff here. So again, this is now we're out of the kidneys, and now we're talking about what happens next. So again, we went through the whole process of how much renal plasma flow goes into the nephrons, and we said that 20% of that plasma is filtered, becomes a filtrate. We are going to reabsorb almost all of it. So only 1% actually becomes urine. Urine. All right. So, and this would be something we would have done on, this is what always kills me. And we'll talk about this next class. But you would have, if we were face to face, you would have all had to pee in a cup, and we would look at your urine and see what's in there, what should be there, what should not be there. But we would also look at the volume as well. Yeah, no tasting of urine. No tasting of urine. Okay. Unless you just have this compelling reason why you may think you have diabetes. Anyway, but it is a quick test. So all that filtrate that you produce, that GFR of 200 and, no, excuse me, yeah, listen to me, 110, 140, 99% of that is going to be absorbed. All right. So you're only producing 1 or 2 milliliters of urine per minute. And that should make sense in a little while. These are things that are in the lab, nothing hugely important here. Again, normally it's slightly acidic. You're getting rid of those extra hydrogen ions, which we will again explain in my next lecture. Don't worry so much about specific gravity. This is another way to measure osmolarity, or the concentration of solutes in your blood. This is specific gravity is more of a physics term than a biology term. And again, pure water has a specific gravity of 1. And then as you add things like sodium, potassium, whatnot, it can go up. But again, this is kind of outdated, so we don't really use this very much. But to be, just to give you an appreciation, if you had a specific gravity of 1.001, then your urine would be super light color, all right? If it was 1.035, it would be that orange, dark yellow orange color. Samantha asked, what makes the master so strong that you can smell it? You're killing me with those kind of questions. First of all, that's genetic, right? That's genetic, all right? Not everybody knows or can smell the asparagus. That's a genetic thing in there. And again, it's one of those things where we don't know exactly what's going on there. But yeah, for some people, not everyone, like I said, it's genetic. If they eat a lot of asparagus, they can smell it in their urine. But again, that's just one of those little strange things in life. Coffee, no, I don't know anything. Coffee, caffeine is a diuretic. Everybody knows that, right? Yeah, caffeine is, but it's not that big of a deal. And I tell people this all the time, the amount of water in a cup of coffee outstrips the caffeine in there. So you don't get dehydrated from drinking coffee. Not really. That's not the same thing if you're one of those crazy young kids that drinks those crazy drinks. I don't even, what's it called? Well, there's Red Bull. That has a ton of caffeine in it. Monster. Thank you, Christine. Christine was reading my mind. Yeah, those Monster drinks. They have a ton of caffeine. And yeah, they can dehydrate you. But coffee, not so much. Not so much. Okay. So again, don't worry about specific gravity. I'm not going to ask you about that. That's, like I said, yes, Daniel, if you smell asparagus and coffee in your pee, it's genetic. And yeah, then you probably need to see a therapist. I don't know. That's a joke. Yeah. 4 Monsters. Yeah, that's a lot of caffeine. That's not good. Okay, let's wrap this up. So again, we use osmolarity in biology. Specific gravity is more for physics, so that's not something you need to worry about. All right. Again, the things that are in your urine are the things that you produced. You produced all these waste products. And then there are other things depending on your levels of electrolytes that we'll talk more about next class. All right. And again, we will go over all that stuff next class on what should and should not be in your urine. And then the rest of this is just basic anatomy. The rest of the renal physiology or anatomy and physiology is simple. All right. So one of your test questions will be to outline the flow of urine from the collecting duct all the way to the bladder. All right. So again, the ureters just are tubes that go from the kidney to the bladder. Very simple. And again, don't worry about that histology. I'm not going to ask you anything on this slide. All right. And again, there's nothing unique about this. You may have remembered this unless you're a professor was a drunk in MP1 is the bladder is one of those rare things where we have transitional epithelium. Again, not a big deal. I'm not going to ask you that. All right. And then, of course, the bladder. Simple. I'm not going to go down. And then we have, so what your question, and I'm just going to, how do I put this? Let me go back here. So I'm just telling you, one of your test questions are going to be, and we will cover it again before we have our next test. But again, so we go from the collecting ducts. All right, they're going to enter into our calyces. Calyx is singular, calyces is plural. We have our minor calyces, and they empty into major calyces, which empty into the renal pelvis. From the renal pelvis, it will go through the ureters and into the bladder. Did everybody get that? That's a test question. I just gave it to you. All right. So from collecting duct, minor calyces, major calyces, renal pelvis, ureters, bladder. Boom. Good. All right. And then again, this is very like your digestive system, where urination is a reflex. And again, when your bladder stretches to a certain point, that's going to trigger the stretch receptors to say, hey, it's time to pee. Your internal urethral sphincter relaxes automatically, and you have control over the external one. That's when you say, nope, not a good place to pee. So you can stop that reflex from happening. All right. Again, I don't make a big deal about the anatomy. Male is a little bit more complicated. We got a longer pathway, if you will. So for the male urethra, we go from the bladder through the prostate, which you should have learned in the AMP1. So we call that prostatic urethra. And then we have the spongy urethra. And again, that was all AMP1 stuff with your corpus cavernosa and corpus spongiosum. All right. Again, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. And then for the female, much shorter pathway. All right. And that is the bane of females, because you have this short little pathway from the urethra to the bladder. Women have way more problems with what? UTIs. Very good. Yeah. I think I mentioned this when I talked about the immune system. What's the nice little cute little song? Explain this in detail. No one remembers. I didn't sing the song, the Itsy Spider, to you guys. Oh, I didn't do that, huh? Okay. Okay. I don't know how many of you have children. Andy, you have children, right?
Yes, sir. I do.
How old are they now? You said
I have a 21-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
Yeek. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have little kids? Who else has little kids? 21, 9, 7?
Yes, sir. I was a horny teenager.
God. All right. So we'll sing it for you. All right. You guys are killing me. So you know the song, the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Right? Tell me somebody has heard Itsy spider. Okay, so yeah, so we're talking, okay, metaphorically, we're talking about bacteria. So itsy spider goes up the water spout. Along comes the rain and washes the spider out. And so for women, that water spout is really short, so the itsy spider can get there before the water washes it out. Yeah. So for the rest of your life, when you think of the itsy bitsy spider, you're going to talk about this. So, and again, this is physiology, so we can say it. So yes, yes, that's the rest of the story. But again, so, and this is, I'd like to think all the women know this already, but after sex, you should go to the bathroom as soon as possible to wash the spider out. And that's the end of the story. It's a true thing. It's physiology. All right. The itsy spider has a long ways to go for the male urethra, so that will get washed out. The women, much shorter version. So, so there you go. And this is just gee whiz facts from way back in the day. A UTI used to be called, way back in the day, because obviously things are very different, was called the honeymoon disease. Everybody figure that out? Yeah. So UTI used to be called the honeymoon disease way back when, because way back when, typically, the first time a woman had sex was on her honeymoon, and that would be the first UTI infection, because they would have that little transfer. Okay, that was probably a little bit more, but yes, that's exactly what it was way back in the day. And that wrapped up. Yes, and you know, it's those little weird things, but typically the first UTI a woman gets is the first time she has sex. That's, again, just theology. That's typically true. Not all the time, but a lot of times. The first moment it's a UTI, it's the first time she's had sex. And it's because, like I said, you have a little mix of bacteria, and it doesn't have far to go. And there you have it. All right, wrap this up, folks. Nope. Just disregard this slide completely. I'm not into strange things. So we'll wrap it up. There's one test question about this. So yeah, so again, as your bladder fills and expands with the volume, down here on the x-axis, see milliliters. So around, and again, these are averages. It depends on how big your bladder is, how small it is. But for average, around 300 milliliters, that's when you're like, oh God, I need to pee. And then when it gets to 400, you're like, okay, I'm not kidding. I need to find a bathroom. So again, this is all about the stretch receptors in there. And again, this is a reflex. So it's just like the defecation thing. Your bladder fills, stretch receptor sends an afferent signal to your CNS, and we have an efferent that says, okay, we want to constrict the smooth muscle in there and want to relax the internal sphincter. And when you say, no, not yet, let me find the bathroom, you have control over the external sphincter. Time, obviously, we know that it doesn't always work when we want it. This always reminds me of my last anecdote for the day. And then, has anybody ever tried to drive from San Antonio to El Paso? Joshua, what's between San Antonio and okay, Vanessa? What's between San Antonio and what's that? What is that town? Fort something. Oh God. Well, Andy, yeah, Andy said it. Nothing. There's nothing. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa. Fort Stockton. You know what's between San Antonio and Fort Stockton? Andy said it. Nothing. And the first time I made that drive, I'm like, holy crap. So yeah. I was like, okay, so now I'm going to have to pee on the side of the road on the highway because there's absolutely nothing there. And we will talk about, and it's a simple thing. Let me go way back up here. We'll talk about it next class. But again, yeah. Well, Cindy, I was raised with all brothers, and my dad did not like to stop on road trips. So learned to pee in empty Gatorade bottles and stuff like that. True story. Exactly. True story. Like, there's a bottle back there. We're not stopping it. So, and here's your genius fact. That's what happens in a fighter jet. If you have to pee in a fighter aircraft, then you basically you just pee in a bag, and because obviously you can't pull over the side of the road. But yeah. And so, Andy, guess what women have to do as fighter pilot? Because we do have female fighter pilots. They don't get to pee in a little bag.
Do they have a catheter?
No, that was a thought, but that's how popular that thought was. Yes, that was the thought. Depends. Yes, a diaper. Yes. So that's inside information that you guys know that no one else knows. That they wore something that's it depends. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of she mentioned that who said yeah, like, hey, we just put a catheter, and all the female fighters like, oh no, I don't think so. So they just yeah, they have a diaper. Okay, any other questions? Fun lecture. You guys are fun. Way more fun than my other 2402. They don't want to say anything. All right, so let's go over real quick here, folks. All right. So August 1st is our next class, fluid and acid base. That's a pretty short lecture. So what we'll do is we will have a review over the renal system and the lab that goes with it, because it's a little complicated if you haven't looked at it. And then we finish up the reproductive system, which isn't hard at all, comparatively speaking. Any questions? Anyone?
When you say review, is it going to be like the review we did last time?
What did I do last time? I don't even remember.
Like we had like review day.
Yeah, like I said, the electrolyte and acid-base balance is like 30-minute lecture. So we can spend all the rest of the time going over everything as well. And while we do this, it's up to you guys. We're flexible. The fluid electrolyte is very, very short. But we could probably knock out the reproductive system. Yeah, I know, Andrea. I'm thinking maybe I should go get a COVID test. But I probably do have a new variant. I did cough. Otherwise, I feel fine. I don't know. The thing about us doing reproductive on August 1st, listen to me, 1st, and then August 3rd, we just have a nice long review. How does that sound? Okay. All right. Yeah. Like I said, the fluid exabase is maybe a 30-minute lecture. The reproductive system is probably an hour. So then we have plenty of time to dedicate August 3rd to just going over everything and spoon feeding you guys. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Again, you guys are a lot of fun. My other class is like, ugh, they don't want to talk. They don't want to say anything. They just sit there. That you guys are hilarious, especially, well, all of you guys. All right. Great. All right. I will see you on Monday. And you can always text me if you need anything. And have a great week. Daniel, question?
Hey, sir, for like a minute, your voice, I couldn't hear you at all. What were you saying? I just saw everyone saying thanks, so I had to refresh.
I said we're done for the night. And then, again, we're going to knock out both the electrolyte fluid